Disability pride is so important and crucial. Not that long ago, PWD were mercy killed and sterilized against their will because their lives were seen as insignificant. Many people today still say that they would rather die than have a disability. Just because you need to do things differently, it does not make you any less important or make you a burden. This video is going to give a brief historical overview of disability rights in Canada. During 1800 to 1930. In 1839, the first asylums created in Ontario for those with developmental disabilities. In 1918, War Amps was created to meet needs of physically disabled soldiers following the World War. In 1928, Alberta introduced the Sexual Sterilization Act, repealed in 1972. During 1930 to 1939. In 1930, the Eugenics Society of Canada is created. In 1933, BC introduced the Sexual Sterilization Act, repealed in 1979, continued until 1986. In 1939, the Nazi euthanization program murders those unworthy of life because of their illnesses and/or disabilities. During 1955 to 1979. In 1955, Community Living Saskatchewan is created, calling for deinstitutionalization. In 1958, the Canadian Association for Community Living was created. In 1960, Ontario's Human Rights Code prohibits discrimination on religion and race but not gender or disability. During 1970 to 1979. In 1970, Ontario gives the legal right to blind people to be accompanied by service dogs in public. In 1975, the UN creates the Declaration on the Rights of Disabled Persons. In 1976, the Council of Canadians with Disabilities is formed to increase awareness, education, and inclusion. In 1977, the Canadian Human Rights Act is passed, finally including women, LGBTQ, and those with disabilities. In 1979, the Handicapped Persons' Rights Act is proposed in Ontario. During 1980 to 1989. In 1980, Trudeau appoints a special committee on the disabled and handicapped to review legislation pertaining to disabilities. In 1981, the first International Year of Disabled Persons occurs. In 1981, the Obstacles Report investigated what those with disabilities face in society. In 1982, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms declares that discrimination of disabilities is prohibited. In 1985, the Employment Equity Act is passed to try to achieve equality for women and persons with disabilities. In 1986, disabled individuals are added to Canada's Employment Equity Act. In 1987, the Mulroney government establishes a standing committee on the status of disabled persons. In 1987, the Mulroney government establishes transportation accessibility for disabilities. During 1990 to 1999. In 1990, disability funding is greatly reduced, subsidies to groups such as CCD disappear. In 1991, the Mulroney government's 5-year national strategy to integrate persons with disabilities socially and economically. In 1994, Malkowski is the first elected deaf parliamentarian in North America. In 1996, the Cretan government creates the Federal Task Force on Disability Issues. In 1996, BC is the first to close all asylums for those with developmental disabilities. In 1997, the Cretan government creates the Opportunities Fund for Persons with Disabilities. In 1998, the Supreme Court rules that ASL interpreters must be present for medical services. During 2000 to 2010. In 2001, a father named Robert Latimer argued that he killed his disabled daughter out of necessity, to end her suffering. This was the first time someone was found guilty of murder in Canada for doing such a thing. In 2001, the Cretan government creates the Office for Disability Issues. In 2005, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act was passed and enacted but is not necessarily abided by until 2025. It is important to note that there is accessibility legislation in Ontario that is taking 20 years to be implemented, but it is not Canada-wide. In 2006, the Harper government plans for the potential National Disability Act. In 2008, the Harper government introduces the RDSP to help persons with disabilities gain future financial security. In 2009, the final asylum for those with developmental disabilities was closed in Ontario. They were the last place to close them in Canada. They ran from 1839 to 1996 in BC. To put some perspective at how disturbing it is that Ontario took such a long time. Residential schools similarly lasted from 1828 to 1996. In 2010, Canada ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities with their first report in 2014. The convention was created by the UN from 2002 to 2006, although United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Disabled Persons statement was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on the 9th of December 1975. Clearly, Canada was 35 years behind on disability progress. During 2010 to 2020. In 2012, the Supreme Court rules that adults with mental disabilities can give reliable court testimony. In 2014, Canada began celebrating the UN's International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd. In 2019, BC increased their maximum monthly disability assistance to $1,183 per month, or around $14,000 per year for a single person. Disturbingly, during COVID-19, legislation communicated that each person needs at least $2,000 per month to survive if they do not have any health issues. Persons with disabilities were strictly not able to access this $2,000 per month COVID supplement. BC instated their own monthly temporary increase to those on disability, and as of October 2021 it was cut in half from their added $300 per month. Even with this additional $300 per month, it was clearly far below the national need of at least $2,000 per month for basic survival. Please like, share, and subscribe to help advocate for an increased awareness of disability history in Canada. We need more awareness to this issue to help improve the lives of the 25% of Canadians that live with disabilities. We need to advocate for further supports and accessibility to life that those without chronic illness take for granted.